If I were to ask you which has gone up more, home prices in the hottest market across Canada or rent, what would you say? Well, the answer might surprise you, and it puts a new spin on the age-old debate of buying versus renting. So in this video, we're not just going to look at this from a pure numbers perspective. We're going to look at this from a practical and applicable angle so you can decide what is right for you. So let's get into it. What's going on, everyone? I'm Ryan, and before we dive into this one, I want to make a quick disclaimer. Yes, I am a real estate agent here in the city of Calgary, so it might be really easy for you to think that this video is going to be biased towards buying, but that's not my goal here. My goal is to lay everything out so that you can make the right decision for yourself. Yeah, I'm going to be peppering in my opinion. That's really the point of this video, but my real focus is to present all the available data, review the trends, and put it all in one place so that you can really make a fully informed decision on what's the right path for you. And with that, let's get into reviewing both markets. So we need to start by looking at both the housing market and rental market here in Calgary to figure out where we sit. Both markets have been on absolute fire, but we really need to understand more than just how much prices have gone up by. We need to understand why. Starting off with the housing market, we have seen incredibly strong demand over the past 3 years. As a result, Calgary's benchmark price, or you could say the typical home price in Calgary, has gone up by 30.9% over that time. 2023 has surprisingly been the strongest of the 3 years, with prices increasing by 10.7%. And we still have November and December to add to that. And if we break the market down even further, detached home prices have gone up by 12.9%. Semi-detached or half duplex prices have gone up by 12.2%. Row townhouse prices are up by 20%. And apartment condo prices are up by 17.3%. All of those statistics are year-to-date increases. So across the board, real estate has been very hot in the city, and this all comes down to incredibly high demand and unbelievably low inventory. If you've been following the channel or the Calgary real estate market at all over the past 2 years, then you are more than aware of the historically low inventory levels that we're seeing right now in the city. To give you some perspective, we have fewer homes for sale right now in the city of Calgary than we did over a decade ago. And in that time, Calgary's population has increased by more than 350,000 people. Now, all of this migration to the city is really reflected in the record high sales volume that we've seen over the second half of 2023. 2023 started off pretty slow. A lot of people worried that it was going to be a down year, as sales were down 40 to 50% from the year prior. However, once we hit the late spring, the market skyrocketed and it hasn't slowed down since. So it's pretty easy to see why prices have increased by the amount that they have, and there's sound evidence to support that we are in a healthy market. Now, we'll get to the sustainability of the market a little bit later in this video, but first, let's jump over to the rental market. So data is much more limited for the rental market, as many deals are done privately. So most of what I'm going to be speaking to in this video comes from publicly available sources like CMHC and Zumper. Now, the rental market, much like the housing market, has been cooking. The average rent for a 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartment is up 23% from last year, according to Zumper. Rent has increased by 60.9% for a 1-bedroom apartment and 57.6% for a 2-bedroom apartment over the last 2 years here in Calgary. That means your average rent for the average 2-bedroom apartment in the city of Calgary is $2,150 a month. The same factors influencing home prices rising is playing a toll on the rental market. There is a ton of demand and not much available. Vacancy is down to 2.7%. That's the lowest it's been since 2014, and this is certainly adding fuel to the fire. Just 2 years ago, vacancy rate sat at about 5.1%. So we've seen a 50% decrease in vacancy or available inventory in the past 2 years. So I have no real firsthand experience with the rental market in Calgary right now. So my opinion is being formed by the experiences from some of my clients, as well as the stories I've read and some of the videos that we've all seen online. I'm sure we've all read or seen that there are bidding wars and lineups or huge groups going through 2-bedroom apartments in downtown Calgary just because it's one of the only options available. But if we compare the two in more detail and look at some other factors influencing each market, there are some key points to take note of. First off, it's the growth rate. Rent has increased by 57.6% for a 2-bedroom apartment. Over that same timeline, the benchmark price for an apartment in Calgary has increased by 29.4% to $316,600. Now that number includes all apartment styles, studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom. So to make this a more fair comparison, I went back, I pulled all of the sold data for 2-bedroom apartments over the last 30 days, as well as from December of 2021, so that we can have a better idea of how much 2-bedroom apartment prices have increased over the past 2 years. So the average sold price has climbed from $275,791 to $338,081. That's a 22.6% increase, and less than half the increase that we've seen in rent over the same timeline. But those numbers really don't help us much unless we look at it on a cost per month basis, because that's really what it all comes down to. What is it going to cost you every month for either living situation? So what we've done is we've hopped over to ratehub.ca. We're going to use their mortgage payment calculator. We've plugged in that average sold price for a 2-bedroom apartment from the last 30 days, and we're going to use the 10% down payment. For mortgage rate, I use the First Big Bank. It's trustworthy, it's fair, it's what a lot of people are going to use when they're going to do their financing. We're going to use that for our mortgage rate. What this came out to be was your mortgage payment turned out to be $1,950 a month. So your mortgage payment is actually less than rent is, but as we all know, there are additional costs to owning. So if we scroll down a little bit more, it's going to get into cash needed to close. This is going to depend on your situation, who you use for lawyers, if you're going to do title insurance, home inspection, so on and so forth. We always kind of recommend about 1.5% of your purchase price is what you should budget for your closing costs. What we really care about are monthly expenses. So in addition to your mortgage, as a homeowner, you're going to have 3 additional costs. You're going to have property taxes, you're going to have property insurance, and you're going to have condo fees for an apartment. So for these numbers, I took a pretty average property tax value from a number of listings. We plugged it in at about $150 a month. For property insurance, this will widely range depending on what you want for coverage, who you go to. I put in $120. This could be too much, it could be too little. For condo fees, really for a 2-bedroom apartment, these can have a huge range to them. $650 seem to be a pretty good median amount. Now, the reason we don't have utilities or phone or cable is because utilities, whether you're renting or owning, your condo fees will include the bulk of those utilities. The only one that you're probably going to be paying on top of it is electricity, and that'll be the same situation whether you're buying or renting. Phone, cable, internet, again, those are going to be costs that you incur whether you're renting or buying. So that brings our grand total for monthly expenses to $2,870. So the difference between buying and renting is now less than $1,000. And this is really the most surprising takeaway from all of this, is that the gap between the monthly cost to own and monthly cost to rent has become so much smaller than it historically has been. Before, renting was much cheaper than owning. All of the additional costs of owning added up, and it made renting a much more viable option. But because rental prices have increased so much and so quickly, that gap is now much smaller. Now, what is surprising is how severe the inventory situation is in the rental market. Everybody knows that buying a property right now is tough to do, but finding a rental is nearly impossible. To show how bad rental inventory is, if we compare to MLS, there are, as of the time of me recording this video, 738 apartments available for sale. For rentals on rentfaster.ca, which is probably one of the most popular tools to use to find a rental, there are 1,775 available apartment rentals. Now this sounds great because there are nearly 2.5 times the number of rental units than there are units to buy. We also know that there is always more demand in the rental market than the buyer's market, as it takes much more to qualify to buy a home than it does to just rent one. And this starts to explain why prices have skyrocketed in the rental market. Inventory is devastatingly low and is putting a ton of upward pressure on prices as landlords hold all the cards. It's a brutal time to be a tenant and a fantastic time to be a landlord. Now, the last key point is market sustainability and the key differences between the two markets. Calgary's housing market has been booming, and it's easy to start to feel skeptical about it and worried that it's not sustainable. But let me remind you that in 2023, we have seen home prices rise by 10.7%, despite interest rates being alarmingly high, despite there being no options for people to buy, and despite what all of the experts said this time last year about a doom and gloom future for real estate. Now, you should always do your research and be critical of the market before diving into an investment like buying a home. A lot of what's out there is overgeneralized, or it's just full of fear because fear is easy to sell. The key is ask the right questions, have the right conversations, so that you know you're making the right decision for you. As for my thoughts, I think interest rates and inventory are the two key variables. Demand is going to stay strong. There's no doubt about that. There's a ton of people waiting on the sidelines for something to change to get them back into the market. So as long as inventory stays tight, which it looks like it's going to, then it's very unlikely that we're going to see a decrease in home prices. Now, if interest rates continue to go up, first off, that would be pretty surprising. And secondly, it would just continue to promote the trend that we've seen all this year. It isn't that people will stop buying, it's just that people are going to spend less. High rates haven't prevented or stopped people from buying, it's just shifted what they're comfortable spending to the more affordable, lower price points. And this is why affordable homes are in such high demand and why inventory levels are the tightest under $700,000. This is the number one reason why townhouse prices are up 20% year to date. It's also the reason why homes around $1 million or more are starting to see a little bit more of a balanced market. People don't have the cash to spend there, so they're settling for more affordable options. I go into much more detail of this situation and this market dynamic in my last update video. The link's in the description below if you're interested. Now, what happens if interest rates do start coming down in 2024? Well, I think the floodgates are going to open with all of the people who have been waiting for that opportunity. This will mean even more demand with little impact on inventory. Interest rates promote buying, not so much selling. Plus, in reality, creating more housing opportunities is very challenging. It would take thousands of homeowners to sell their homes without needing to buy, or a significant uptick in new housing starts, which is a mess because of all the red tape in the development process, or a mix of both, and I really don't see either of those things happening. Looking at the new housing startup data from CMHC shows that despite Calgary having stable and strong numbers similar to the record numbers recorded last year, we aren't fulfilling the demand that exists. Many developers would rather build lease-only condo buildings or townhouse developments to take advantage of the supportive policies out there and the rental rates that they can get. So great, new properties are being built, but they're not available for sale. Now, the rental market sustainability is different in my mind, and this all comes down to the prospective future of inventory. I think we're going to start to see rent cool off. You have a lot of builders offering legal basement suites in their new home construction. This is a high demand item for new homeowners as they want to help with affordability. You have all of those lease-only condo buildings and townhouse developments that developers are doing that we just talked about. And you have a big shift coming in the short-term rental market. Short-term rentals have been a great option for landlords over the past few years. However, with some concerning data from companies like Airbnb and a lot of condo buildings outlawing short-term rentals altogether, a lot of those units are going to be coming back as long-term rental options. Remember, inventory is the key issue. Rates have gone up so much because there are so few options, so landlords can do that. However, with these 3 forms of potential inventory coming to the market, it should promote a more level, if not cooled off rental market. So we've broken down the numbers, we've compared the 2 options, and we've reviewed the outlooks. So which is the right decision for you? It all comes down to making sure that the monthly payments are comfortable, and what does the next 5 to 10 years of your life look like? If you find a property that you really love, the payments are manageable, and you see yourself staying in Calgary for the long haul, then buying is the way to go. The outlook for the market looks positive, so your property will appreciate in value. Plus, you're going to be building equity along the way. Now, if interest rates have you concerned, the forecast does show them starting to come down in 2024. So when the time to refinance comes, you should be able to secure a lower rate, and you'll have a much better principal value because you bought earlier on. And if that's not enough for you, well, guess what? Paying rent is basically paying 100% interest. Your money is not working for you. It's just paying someone else's mortgage. Now, it would be wrong to make this seem like everyone should be buying, because there are some great reasons why you shouldn't be. Number 1 would be if you're unsure about your future. If you don't see yourself staying in Calgary, you're unsure about your career, you're making a career change, then don't buy. Number 2 would be if you had just relocated and you have to find employment. A prerequisite to buying is having at least 3 months of employment. Number 3 would be if the type of home or type of property that you want to live in is outside of your budget to buy, but you can make it work as a rental. And number 4 would be if you just don't want to get involved in a very competitive buyer's market. Buying a home has always been an emotional process, but this market is making it even more challenging. The prices can be shocking. You're under a ton of pressure to make very quick decisions. You're going to be worried that you're making the wrong decision. It's really not the right environment for everyone. So that's it. The age-old debate, buying versus renting, rekindled. And if you're someone who's starting to think about buying, or maybe you think you need to find a rental here in the city, or maybe you're relocating, give me a call. I would love to help you with your decision-making process. There's no pressure. That's not my style. I'm here to help you make the right decision. I also want to know your thoughts. Throw them in the comment section below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think either market's sustainable? Is real estate doomed? I'd love to know. And until the next time, we're out.